This is the most expensive pencil I've ever bought. Is it worth it? Oh, and this video is brought to you by my new Skillshare class on drawing anatomy. Here it is, Modern Fuel. This is like as high-end as I've ever seen a mechanical pencil. So I think it came to almost 600 Australian dollars on 2 pencils. But I believe this is the copper. It's quite heavy. That was pretty satisfying. This is the titanium one. This one's a 0.5. Look, it may grow on me, but I think to know we need to spend a bit of time with it. Let's draw. All right, first impressions. I've already shared, it's heavy. And first impression when it comes to drawing, honestly, is the same. Maybe it's not for drawing. I mean, I believe the guy who invented it was an architect. Now their story is that as an aerospace engineer, Andrew, the founder of Modern Fuel, the guys who make these pencils, used a mechanical pencil every day, but he noticed that universally mechanical pencils were cheap, disposable items. If he wanted an heirloom quality, entirely metal pencil, he'd have to make it himself. This is Andrew's pencil. This is not everyone's pencil. I did find myself leaning much more on the copper pencil, as you can tell, which is the thicker one, the one with the 0.9 lead, simply because the pencil's so heavy that using the thicker and slightly darker lead to put down the line work and the shading was more comfortable and organic, but it was still uncomfortable and a bit inorganic. Now, I can draw a picture with it, and I have a lot of very specific thoughts on what I like in a mechanical pencil. And I will later in this video share my favorite mechanical pencils of all of these, ones that anyone could afford comfortably. And honestly, I disagree with Andrew. I don't think all mechanical pencils that aren't this are disposable or made of cheap parts. I think there are great mechanical pencils. We'll get into that later, but I think before we go further, I need to remove my bias and my very strong opinions and put other people in this seat and see what they think. All right, do you prefer the fancy ones or the normal ones?
The fancy one for sure.
The fancy one feels smooth.
For drawing, the fancy ones are quite nice.
This one, like this one.
So far, I'm liking these guys.
How much do you think the fancy ones should cost?
5 to 10 bucks.
20 bucks.
They're probably very expensive.
For almost 600 Australian dollars.
For a pencil.
It's kind of a bit high for most people.
I would say that these aren't as good as I would want to pay for them.
All right, give us your quick review. What are your impressions? How does it make you feel?
I really like this one as well. I might prefer this one over these.
I don't feel like they're amazing for drawing. I do draw a lot, but not enough that I feel like I need super high quality mechanical pencils.
I think we've come to some pretty standard conclusions. Sorry, it costs how much? It's a bit awkward to have a pencil so heavy that you're scared of breaking your desk when you drop it. I think that's about it. But maybe if I directly compare from one to the other, I'll have a clearer idea, which is what I'll take you through now, after I take you through the very exciting news of my brand new Skillshare class. Anatomy is not simple, but it can be, which is why I'm really excited about my class, making it really approachable. And I take you through all of it in a class that's coming out in stages to make it as digestible as possible. So go over to Skillshare now and check out the first 4 lessons. We're releasing 3 lessons every week, so you can follow along as it comes out. Each video has a challenge, something you can learn that I encourage you to apply so you can further apply the lessons I take you through in the Skillshare class. So go check out the link in the description, because the first 1,000 of my subscribers will get 1 month's free trial. But that's not gonna last forever, so go check it out while it's valid so you can spend a full month exploring the platform, the handful of other classes I've done on Skillshare, my entire anatomy class as it unrolls, and the tens of thousands of high quality classes available on Skillshare for illustration, drawing, design, animation, and loads more. Huge thank you, of course, to Skillshare for not only sponsoring this video, but working with me to make such a high quality class for you guys to go enjoy. Let us see if the high quality pencils stand up to scrutiny. And this, my friends, is the scrutiny. I am going to go through all of these pencils and eliminate the ones I'm not fussed with, finalize a handful that I like, and pick one that will contend with these ridiculous things. Now, I had this big batch of pencils I was sorting through to pick the cream out of the crop. Obviously, the first to be eliminated were the cheapest feeling, most lightweight plastic ones, which honestly, they have their place. Sometimes they might be more convenient than having a cheap wooden pencil that needs to be sharpened or make a mess. At the end of the day, I prefer mechanical pencils in general, so I like all of these for different purposes. But the purpose we're identifying is high quality, professional standard, artistic or draft-worthy pencils. So, with a handful of the highest quality, most functional pencils that I felt my way through, then I started to get a little pickier. In particular, how it felt in hand. What was the balance? Where was the weight? Did it feel plasticky? And actually, a big one is the click. That feeling of the clicking of the back. I mean, it's a mechanical pencil. It's the mechanism of the mechanical pencil. And the ones that I first eliminated were actually the ones that had the least satisfying click. I actually think a big part of that satisfying mechanical pencil feeling comes from a good click. It turns out the Graph Gear 500, the 0.7 that actually some of the people trying out all the different pencils liked, I liked it too. It's half plastic, half metallic. It's got a little more weight to it, and the click is goddamn good. It's got a really sharp tip, but because it's a 0.7 instead of 0.5, it does mean I can get a softer look if I want to, but still get some really sharp edges and sharp lines for clean sketching. Now, because we're competing against a thick pencil and a thin pencil, I need two pencils, and my second pick was the Hydex 5230. Now, the Hydex 5230 is the only thick leaded, heavy bodied, whatever you want to call it, mechanical pencil in the mix, and there are plenty more available. I have to say, actually, this one feels reasonably cheap compared to some other ones I think you could get. So it's not that it's the best kind of thick lead mechanical pencil, it's just that it's the only one in this mix, but I think it will show the versatility. And if you like the look of how this works, even though it is a little more complex, definitely check out your options. With that said, I have two very capable feeling contenders to match up against my two insanely expensive mechanical pencil purchases. I'm going to create a battle to the death artwork, which is my favorite kind of artwork to make. On one side, I'll start off with the much more affordable pro range mechanical pencils. On the other side, the much more snooty, expensive ones, and see if I will eat my words. Maybe they just create magic that no other pencils can replicate. With both of the characters that I approached in my fight to the death battle artwork, I started with the thinnest pencil first. I think using a nice, sharp, clean pencil when you sketch works really well because you tend to need to be pretty messy and loose when you're sketching. As you can see, I'm really moving the pose around quite a bit to try and find proportions that are comfortable, a pose that needs to be reworked until eventually things start to lock into place a little bit and I can start shaping the anatomy on top. By the way, this is all an approach I go through in my Skillshare class, and I divide it into the 3 steps of drawing anatomy, starting off with the blocking of the pose, then shaping the anatomy on top, and then finally deciding the detail that shows through. Now, in this piece in particular, you can sort of see where I start to allude to that anatomy and shaping that and reshaping it to define it. But in the class itself, I basically outline every single muscle group. Now, when you actually draw final art pieces, you tend to not need to draw every single muscle defined, especially as you become more and more familiar with how the anatomy of the body sort of holds together and works in different ways. If anything, you sort of build a really strong understanding of how the skin sits on top of muscle groups and how the muscle groups sort of work and intertwine. Then I switch over to my heavier lead, mainly to lay down broader areas of shading and then to add a lot more depth in shading overall. Starting off with a nice strong dark skin tone, but going for as soft a blend as I can so that slowly but surely I can sort of add definition and shading, creating more of a sense of physical presence as I add more and more depth. So I keep it pretty rough and textured because I think that's the strength of mechanical pencils. They're about getting the job done more than they're about creating the perfect outcome. But with that said, I have to say, this is the closest I've ever felt to working with mechanical pencils in a way that feels like art pencils. I loved using both of these pencils. The thin Pentel Graph Gear 500 gave me a fantastic sense of control and just really sharp edges and outcome. It felt great in the hand, it felt durable and high quality, and it really felt like it responded to everything I wanted it to do. And the Hydex 5230 did a great job of putting down what I really wanted it to. I do think it came with a cheaper lead because it didn't go down as nice as the Pentel lead, but the increased surface area of the larger lead gave me a lot of room to play with when it came to shading and giving this whole piece a bit more substance. Okay, it's time to dive into the heavy hitters. It's time to represent what I think these things feel like and are if they were a superpowered hero or villain. I thought it appropriate that it be in the style of Colossus. So as with the other sketch, I started off with my thin pencil. It's just really uncomfortable to use. It does feel like it's fighting against me in the drawing process. Lines go down too heavy, and over time, over a longer duration of using it, the fatigue kicks in, which I'll get to later. But with a rough blocking down, I then moved on to shaping anatomy. Now this pose in particular is an example of, when it comes to anatomy, what a lot of people feel really challenged by, which is the lesser known or understood muscle groups like the back, the triceps, and the back of the legs and the butt. How all of these interconnect and also how they function. The back, out of all of the muscle groups, changes shape the most drastically, but also is a large proportion of the surface areas of muscles, but a lot of people don't understand how to draw them or feel pretty intimidated by them. That's the sort of thing I break down really straightforward in my anatomy class, and I put so much work into the research and preparation to make it as simple for everyone as possible. So if you've ever wanted to draw superheroes or comic book characters, extreme anatomy, or more subtle stuff but just don't quite know how the muscles work together or how to shape the skin around the body, definitely check out my Skillshare class. I know I've mentioned it quite a bit in this video, but I'm really excited, guys. I spent like a week on researching and studying and planning and blocking out the lessons, and then a week on filming it and making it as great as it could be. And as you can see, with the lessons put into practice and how I put them on this hero here, the results can be really dynamic and fun and compelling and look more effortless than it feels when you feel confronted by something that could be complex in theme. Colossus character's anatomy shaping together and his shading also starting to feel pretty chromy. I added those final detail lines to make him look like the superhero or villain that he is. You can't get past that as the verdict. I only drew this for half an hour and I'm sore. And that's not great. But these were made by an architect, and all the reviews I could find online are from drafters and architects. But to shake my bias and try one last thing, I'm gonna pretend to be a drafter. We're gonna draw a house. Ooh. That's pretty smooth. I have to begrudgingly admit, this feels way better for this. I feel silly. Conclusion is, the video was a waste of time because they're not for illustration. I apologize to Modern Fuel for misrepresenting your product, or at least not being qualified to represent your product and trying anyway. This was dumb and fun, and they are both my middle names. So if you like that, make sure to stick around. Subscribe to JAZZA for more dumb fun, or fun with a dummy, with art and creativity. Make sure to click that like button and the other things that are surrounding this video or in this video. Just in general, towards the end of videos, be click happy, because there are other videos I've done that you'll like. I'm gonna shut up now. Yeah.